What's going on, y'all, and welcome to another episode. And today I have Ty Blankmeyer. He's the current recruiting coordinator over at Vanderbilt. He's had a great career himself as a baseball player, playing across the D1 level at St. John's. Then he was drafted, worked in professional baseball as a scout, then moved into Wake Forest as a grad assistant, then graduated into Duke, where he was the recruiting coordinator, and now he's at his spot that he's at now as a recruiting coordinator over at Vanderbilt. Today, we're going to be talking about recruiting process in general, and then getting a little bit more specific with how Vanderbilt goes about their recruiting process. So, I'm going to just go ahead and dive into it, Ty, with one of the easiest questions probably that you get every single day, and it's just overall, what's the Vanderbilt kind of approach to recruiting student athletes?
Yeah, I think it's a loaded question, but I'd keep it simple. You wanna recruit people that you think are really good players and they can keep becoming good players, but you want to recruit the right player in terms of their fibers, their makeup, because if you do that, the recruiting process happens so young and you're projecting, you want to recruit the right people. You want to recruit the people that aren't going to be satisfied and handle themselves in a way that they can always take lessons, they can always get better and develop. So I think, yeah, the talent is needs to be there. I mean, we're looking for talented players that can help us win a national championship and um, may hopefully become big leaguers one day, but we're also looking for the right kids. We're looking for competitive kids that want to be the best versions of themselves, but also want to make the people around them better. So I think that's a super key piece of this because if you're just in it for yourself, Vanderbilt's probably not the right place for you. So I think that's a concept we always try to evaluate. However, I mean, it's a tough concept to evaluate in today's society because, with social media and all that stuff, I think a lot of people can be perceived that way. But, I think that's a big part of coaching and developing is getting them outside of themselves and into the team and getting the right people to be a part of it.
No, that's a great answer, man. Obviously, Vanderbilt has a tradition of, putting guys into the big leagues, but, you are able to really get your pick of the litter, it seems like, at that type of caliber of school. And, in order for a guy to be able to be successful there, y'all probably have a very regimented routine, and somebody's got to be able to fit into that. So, great answer there. What are some of the qualities on the field that separates somebody from just a D1 player to being able to play high level collegiate baseball like at Vanderbilt? What are the qualities that you're looking for?
Yeah, I think one is, just being a very, very great competitor. This is cliche, but we do look at multiple sport athletes.
Hmm.
I think the development curve happens in college when you're a multiple sport athlete. Now, I understand and realize that most kids are not multiple sport athletes anymore, and that's fine too. But guys that put themselves in a situation where they compete at a high level every day, no matter what the circumstance is, no matter what the environment is that they play in, I think that's important because if they can go about it every day and even if there's nothing on the line of the game and they play like there's something on the line, I think that's a big distinction. So I think that's a quality. Um,
And real quick, before you go any further, I want to ask a question there because I think I've gotten a lot of questions on this particular topic of multiple sport athletes in high school. Um, you know, when you're at a big school, it's easy to have guys who are better than you at other sports. Like if you're at a school in Texas that has, 3,000 people, chances are, unless you're like the world's best athlete, you're probably not like the guy on every single team. However, when you're at these smaller schools across the country, maybe you're not a great basketball player, but you're the best athlete. Is that something that you think like hinders the development of a kid if they're just, on the team just to be on the team as opposed to maybe, hey, I want to go play college baseball and they identify that in high school instead of focusing on football, basketball, baseball. It's just
Mhm.
like, hey, I should probably spend some time on the baseball field more than I am in the basketball gym because again, these guys need me, and it's kind of like, hey, do I need to be a little bit more selfish with where I'm spending my time for the sport that I want to go play in college? Hope that makes sense with that
No, that
question.
does make sense. And what I would say to you is you're 100% right. But I do think there is a balance of athleticism and movement and competition that is important to kind of keep developing in a sense. Like I'm well aware that a lot of kids they're in competitive environments, and if they wanted to play basketball, maybe they wouldn't play or be on the team or whatever. And their time could probably be allotted in a different scope. But I'm also under the understanding if you can and you're able to compete in a different manner, 2 years down the road, those experiences will pay off. Um, so I think the moral of it is if you can put yourself in environments to compete more often, and that might not necessarily mean being on your high school basketball team, but just being able to practice that competitive fiber and develop that. I think that's important, and that could look different for different kids. I don't know. I've even heard some kids that are playing, CYO basketball and just trying to get a different form of athleticism and competition. But I think that's helpful. I really do. So maybe it doesn't look like the how you want it to look like on a varsity, but like maybe there is different ways to kind of exercise it and do it. You know what I mean?
Definitely, definitely. What I normally tell, parents or kids who ask that is, yeah, I always, use myself as a case study. And, I was a football, basketball, baseball player all the way through, my sophomore year. And I went to a bigger school where, hey, maybe I would play these sports, but probably going to be, a bottom tier player, going to be on the team, maybe sit the sidelines. Like that's when I decided, like, hey, I need to focus my talent on baseball. It seems like this is my clear path and avenue. And this is where I think that I'm going to be spending a lot of my time. So again, different strokes for different folks. But
For
the one
sure.
thing that I, come across is a lot of small town kids who, are just being asked to play on these teams just because they're the best athlete. And I'm always curious, like, is that a positive or is that a negative? And again, I guess it's just always going to be case by case.
Case by case, 100%.
Yeah. Yeah. So, what are some of the metrics that y'all go about measuring when you're looking at a recruit on the baseball field? Are there anything that stick out to you from infield to hitters to pitchers that you're just like, okay, we're gonna, use these metrics as a baseline for measuring a kid's ability to play at the school?
Yeah, so I have a background of a scout, being a professional scout for 4 years, which paid off. I mean, I think it's paid off in the sense of like I can look at things in two landscapes, right? I think there's pro style, metrics that you look at, 60, velocity, all that stuff. But I think the big thing is that you need to make sure those metrics uh, relate to some playability. Because if you don't, like Daylight, you played the game a long time and played at a high level. We've all seen those guys that are great showcase players, but when they get in between those lines, it's tough. So that's the first thing I'd see, like just the playability of doing that. Because if it doesn't matter how far you can hit the ball, if you can't play the game, it's irrelevant. So I think that's an important factor, being able to play the game. It's not a metric, but I think I always circle back on that no matter what. Um,
And
as
how
far
are
as
you
Go
and
ahead.
sorry to cut you off there because I know that you're going to move on, but while you're there, like, how are you evaluating that? Right? Like, obviously, you have a trained eye, and it's going to be tough to be able to sit here
Mhm.
and quantitatively say like what it is that you see to be able to judge somebody's like baseball instincts. But what are some just few things that you can give somebody to be like, yeah, when I see a kid do this, like, yeah, he's got it. He understands it and he knows it at a high level.
I think that this is like simply put, like if you go to the field that day and the kid, there's a sense of the kid bringing joy and love to be on the field at the game. Yeah, that usually marks the kid with instinct and IQ. Usually there's something more to him that you got to take a deeper dive. Um, but just that, like those players that don't take anything for granted. I mean, because I think when you do that and you could be present more times than not, you're not going to let the other stuff bother you too much. So the ability to keep yourself in the moment, your mind, that's a big factor. And you see it, you sense it. It's tough to like really put your hand on it sometimes, but you see the kids that, they're in the moment. They're not worried about anything they did in the past or what's going on in the future. They're there. They're there where their feet are. They love being there. And usually that allows for their true ability to come out. Um, but that's how I'd evaluate that. I mean, we could talk, hey, this player gets all the dirt ball reads and all the, that stuff, but the ability to be present and being where your feet are is a huge deal because I think that separates you from that's a competitive advantage of you being in the moment and you not worrying about all the outside distraction of this day and age. That's a super key factor in my mind. It really is.
Definitely, with how much goes into baseball at the college level. Obviously, both of us haven't gone through it. The daily practices, the long bus trips,
Mhm.
the weight room sessions, all of that stuff, the class that goes into it. In between all of that, like you got to really, really love it. And it's a big step between that high school level where you're playing, games every weekend or maybe like two
Mhm.
or three, and it's just like right till you get to college and now you're playing 50, 60 games high level. Then you go into summer ball, play another, in some leagues, 70 games, and then fall
It's like
baseball,
us in the Northwoods, man. Yeah.
and then by the
You
time
gotta love it.
you gotta be in there on the daily grind. So no, that's great. And then, as far as, on the academic side, when you're evaluating a player, can you touch on what it is that needs to show up, whether it's on the academic side or how they
Yeah.
go about their business? Like, how are y'all evaluating that?
Yeah. So this is a fun question for me because I wasn't the best student in high school. I was just okay. But I was a good enough baseball player that if I did better in class, my options would have skyrocketed just in the fact that maybe a couple of those, you know, mid-major Ivy League type schools would have had interest in me. And that those schools are, really special to get a degree from. I think at the end of the day, I've been at Wake Forest, Duke, and Vanderbilt, three of the best universities in the country, honestly. But
Behind
one thing,
Texas, for anybody listening
yeah,
here.
yeah, yeah. I think the big thing is like the better you do in school, the more options you're gonna have, no matter who you are. And if you think for a second that school doesn't matter, and I'm preaching like that does matter because your options are, maybe you have three schools that want to give you an opportunity to play there. Well, I bet they would triple if your grades were, really good. So, and that's just to me like as far as what a transcript looks like, I can't really speak to that because it's different at everywhere you are, but the best you could possibly make it is 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 what I would say. Like I mean that's all A's, B's, whether you have honors classes or not. If you can open the door for yourself to, you know, get different, D1, D2, D3 academic schools in there, it's going to change the course of your life. You know, you may not think that, but it does. So, um, and at the end of the day, that's why you're playing ball. You're playing ball to get the degree. Like let's not mistake that even at this level. Um, you want to get that college degree because that opens so many doors for you as a human being, and connections and all that stuff. So um, the broad answer I'd put is get as good as grades as you possibly can, because it will open so many avenues. And even at Vanderbilt, a kid that has a great transcript, it's very attractive to us because it know you take this seriously, and
Yeah.
this degree is a big deal. If someone were to get a scholarship to Vanderbilt, like, yeah, you're going to play baseball at the best baseball program in the country, but you're also getting one of the best degrees that the world can offer. So like that means something. So you want to see that everything means something.
Definitely, definitely. Great answer there. Kids, just make it easy on yourself, make it easy on the coaches. You don't want to be held back because of your grades. Like that's one of the easiest things. And what I'll say is, for those watching, like 80% of high school, 90% of high school is just showing up and turning your homework in on time. So you do that, you're gonna be all right. Switching kind of topics here, and it's more tailored towards how y'all go and find kids. Obviously, there's a million different avenues and ways that y'all do it, but I think right now there's a lot of talk around showcases versus going on campus for visits, you know, or just being a PG ranked guy. Like, where are the rankings for you when you go and look at a player? Like, are you looking for guys at showcases? Are you looking at PG rankings? Are you only looking at guys who are interested in wanting to come to y'all's camp? Like, how are you going about finding kids?
You name it. I mean, it's like I think our job is to find to get the right players in the building. That's the most important thing any college coach can do is get the right players in the building. So, yeah, I'll go to showcases. Yeah, I'll go to tournaments. Um, I'll do all of it. I think the most important, impactful thing that you do though is camps,
Yeah,
because that shows that you have a vested interest in that place, and then and you can also learn a lot by being at that place. You can learn, hey, I really connect on this game. There's a great vibe I get when I'm on this campus. I really love the coach's message. I really love how the players at the camp interact with everybody. I really love the facilities. I really love the proximity to an airport. I don't know what it could be, but all those things matter. So I think the first thing is camps. Everywhere that I've been, camps are important. I'm not saying we get all our players from camps, but certainly we get a ton. And I think that's the most important thing that you can do. Um, and then as far as, you know, everywhere else, I mean, I think it's being at the right events and having people you trust um, point you towards those events, and, but also knowing when to get exposure, because I
yeah,
think that's a key point. If you know when in your development curve to get your exposure, I think that's a super, super important piece of this. Um, and it's
how
not
would
just,
somebody know?
I think it's just being have a self-awareness with your parents, yourself, and understanding, hey, maybe should take this summer and spend more time in the weight room. I don't know. Maybe I should get get healthy, because I find that to be a case. They want to go to these events and they're going hurt. They got a pulled hammy and they're running 5 seconds down the line. You're like, what's going on? So I think health is probably the most important one, and also just being self-aware. And I think having somebody in your corner that can point you toward that self-awareness and say, be real and authentic with you, and say, hey man, let's pull out of these two events. Let's get you healthy. Let's get you back synced up, and we'll ride from there.
Definitely.
And then once you go, then you can play as much baseball as you possibly need to because you love it. But I think there's a piece to that too, if I'm being honest. So I think it all matters, man. I really do. But I would say camp. You can't mistake a camp, but like that's going to that specific college camp is the most important thing you could do, no matter
Definitely.
where it is. Like, if you like that school and you think you could play there and you believe it and you want to play there, I think that's the most well invested you could spend your money.
Yeah. No. What about perfect game? Obviously it's taken the baseball world, high school world by storm. I don't even know like how big it was when you and I were coming up. Like I definitely wasn't at perfect game, tournaments or anything to be seen, but it seems like now like if you're not on a perfect game team or you're not ranked or anything, like the chances in the high school kids' minds and the parents' minds, like you ain't going anywhere. So like where does a school or how does a school like Vanderbilt like evaluate and utilize like a perfect game ranking system?
I think it's important for information in terms of like just knowing their database and like knowing the names and stuff like that. But as far as the ranking system, you don't that it's not about that. It's about the program creating their own internal ranking system and board based on what that program university values on their club. has nothing to do with they're just paid to come up with their own system and they evaluate, but we all value different things, so not that it's wrong, it's, fairly subjective, but that's every school has their own, they value different things. Beauty's in the eye of the beholder. They understand that it's all different. So it's good, but having a higher ranking doesn't necessarily mean like, you know, I wouldn't get wrapped up in it. That's you being wrapped up in what other people think. And when you get down that rabbit hole, guess what? You're not in a good mind space. You're not where your feet are. You're not present. So, there is an element of it. I get it. I get why people get wrapped up in it, but in my mind, you know, we have a job to do, and our job is to create that our own value system.
Very nice. Very nice. Yeah, no, I love that answer because again, a lot of high school kids and parents, I think it's a lot of the parents are falling for like the trap of like their kid needing to be out on these perfect game showcases and going to every showcase under the sun just to make sure that their kid's ranked and seen. And again, I get it. But again, it ain't gonna help you in the
Yeah,
overall scheme of things,
it's
whether you're
it's
one,
not.
two, or unranked.
It's not. I mean, we'll definitely go to perfect game events. Like I think they do a good job getting a lot of teams there, a lot of players. Don't get me wrong. Um, but most places in the country aren't offering guys because they're X
Mhm.
ranked player. You know what I mean?
Definitely. Definitely. What about how the new scholarships are like, how are the new scholarships and what's been going on with the NCAA? Like, how is that going to impact, high school players looking to get scholarships at schools? Obviously, you can't speak for all schools, but you have a pretty good eye on what's going on across like collegiate baseball. So how do you foresee that impacting high school baseball players with the limited
Uh,
spots, all of that stuff?
yeah, yeah, good question. And that's the $1 million question. All what I'll say is all of the college coaches know exactly what everyone else knows in terms of what's tweeted out there.
Hmm.
Uh, that's an important distinction. And then as far as how it affects high school kids, certainly there's going to be some effect to the general landscape of just how many spots there are on each team. That's
Yep.
definitely going to matter. But I would say it's case by case to the university, right? If some universities want to use the transfer portal, if some universities you know, want to do a mix of both, and some want to just get homegrown. Like so that all is based on the club and the school that you're looking at. But as far as the biggest thing, I would just say there's just going to be a little less space on each roster. As far as that, if that goes through, that's all I really know. Um, we'll see. There's going to be a lot. It just just from if I'm assuming things, a lot of the D2s and D3s are going to get a lot better from this. So I think it's a good thing for baseball.
Definitely, definitely. And I was talking to a D3 coach last week actually about how they're having a hard time keeping really good players because once you prove yourself at a level, like you can just level up in today's day and age. How how do you see that again impacting high school kids with the ability for colleges to be able to bring on somebody who's, got a couple years under their belt, whether it's JUCO or whether it's at a D2, D3, and now is being able to play at a higher level as opposed to bringing on a freshman who maybe is unproven. Obviously, you like their abilities on the baseball field and they do a lot of great things, but your bet may be safer with somebody who has proven at bats, proven innings under their belt at a college level. Like, how are you, deciphering whether or not high school players are, your best bet or JUCO D2, D3 players, NAIA?
Yeah, that's a good question. I think it's just based on the right program. I think there is nothing better than getting the right high school kid on campus and developing him over the 3, 4 years that he's here. I think that's the most fruitful way of college athletics and recruitment. With that being said, at a couple places, at the last few places, we had transfer portal guys that just fit well and it worked. Um, so it's always has to be a mix of both, no matter what. I don't think you can get wrapped up in either or. but it just makes it more competitive because you played professional baseball. How different is that than professional baseball? It's starting to look more like professional baseball. If there's a trade from another organization and it that that guy jumps a homegrown talent in double A, he's
Yeah.
taking some of his at bats. Like it's just part of it, right? I think that's what we're looking at. We're just looking at more of a pro model, unfortunately.
Yeah,
So,
definitely.
but like you look at yourself, you went to Lenore Rhine, like if this landscape was how it was and you were a draft pick and this summer we played together in the Northwoods, you had a great summer, like would you have done it any differently looking back?
That's a tough one, man. That's a tough one because I did set out to JUCO to be able to go to a TCU, a Texas A&M, a Texas. Like I knew I needed to get bigger. Once I got bigger and went from 165 to 220 pounds, and I stopped hitting the ball with a wet newspaper and started driving balls out of the yard and hitting RBI. Like I don't know, I don't know, and I'm glad I'm not in a situation to have to make that
But that's what
decision.
I'm
Like
saying.
it
Like,
made me stand
yeah.
out on the D2 level. And, I got to be at the top of the food chain on my team and, throughout my conference. So it made me look good. And I don't know if I go to another, D1 and try to level up if I'm still that same player in the eye of a scout, rather than like, oh, we're going to get the best player on this team. Hey, now we're looking at, the sixth, seventh, eighth guy on a team. I don't know. So
Yeah, it's tough. It's a tough one, but that's kind of, I mean, if you went to college 10 years later, I mean, that decision would have been on your hands,
yeah,
you know.
exactly.
And I played
Exactly.
with you. I mean, didn't matter what conference you came from, you were a good player. And you
Yeah.
watch, if you watch some of the big leaguers here, I mean, there's big leaguers from Division III schools, Chaz McCormick went
Yeah.
to, he played in the PSAC, went to Millersville. So like they come from all over, man.
Yeah, definitely. Good baseball all over the place. I tell people all the time, JUCO was some of the best baseball I ever played. We had 4-man rotation, 4 games in a weekend. All 4 ended up playing professional baseball. The guy in front of me at shortstop ended up going to Texas A&M. I think our entire infield was D1 bound after that. Like tons and tons of great baseball around the country. It doesn't matter what level. What about how y'all are? Like how early y'all are starting to recruit players nowadays. It sounds like from the conversations I've been having, it's getting more, like you said, professional style where you can't necessarily build too far in the future because you don't know how the landscape's going to change. So it's almost like a 1 year, okay, let me see what I got after this year, rebuild. Okay, 1 year, like, okay, I brought in this guy. I was thinking he was going to be here for 4 years. Now he's moved, transfer portal, yada, 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 blows up in my face. Like, are y'all just like, let me look at the junior class. Let me look at the sophomore class, freshman. Like, where are you guys starting to really put guys on your radar at?
Yeah, it's funny you say this because there is an element of that, but for us, it's more getting the high school player right. That's the most important thing. We need to get good high school players in this place and to develop them, in this system, and that's what's worked here, and it's going to continue to. For me, I like developing history on the player and having a good landscape of how they looked over the calendar year before you really get into the weeds of recruiting them and trying to get them to your school and getting them on visits. So, for instance, like 2027s are sophomores now, you know, we'll evaluate those guys heavy at camp. We'll try to do what we can to evaluate them and develop relationships and then put them on a list and then prioritize seeing them in the summer. That way we can build a good balance of history with them and not just see them and say, oh, all right, this kid's good because I saw him for a weekend here. So um, I think the evaluation part starts like, their sophomore year. And if they're really talented, maybe, just make a note of them a little bit before that. And then as far as recruiting, man, you need to build a strong core class of each. So it does, really starts their junior year, but evaluating starts before that. So
Definitely.
that's how I'd say it.
Okay. Yeah, no, it seems like it used to be you'd roll out of bed sometimes and you see an eighth grader with an offer, right? And you'd be
Yeah,
like,
yeah.
like It seems like those days are kind of dwindling though.
It's
And
gone.
obviously you can't offer anybody like that anymore, but it doesn't even seem like a lot of freshmen are getting a lot of conversation started, even if they're like high level. It sounds like sophomore year might be the earliest that some of these guys are really starting to get attention from college coaches. And then unless they're just like throwing metrics that are just jumping off the page, right? There's always your outlier guys where you're just like, all right, this guy is a freaking dude. But for 99% of players, it seems like maybe sophomore year and then obviously junior year being the biggest year probably of them all. Or would you say that? What year would you say in high school was the biggest year for players?
Ooh, I would probably say junior going into senior summer is the biggest year collectively. Um, but the sophomore going into junior summer is big too. They're all important, man. But
Yeah,
I think those high school seasons are probably the most you know, I would say.
nice. Well, we've talked about a lot of good things that you want to see from players. What's a couple of red flags that when you're evaluating a kid, you see something, you're just like, man, you had all of these great things, but this one thing, like, we don't accept that here.
Body language. I mean, I think that's, you know, always talked about it no matter where, I've been around some of the best coaches in college baseball, Chris Pollard, Tom Walter, Tim Corbin. That's a
You can go ahead
commonality.
and throw your dad in there, bro. Your dad's a
My
great.
dad, man, yeah, for sure.
Hey,
For
come
sure. I was
on
raised by him. Uh,
now.
but, body language. If you want to stand out, body language, make it strong, make it look like, hey, no matter what, it's the same. It's funny. I, Corb showed a video the other day of just like Shohei Ohtani and Mookie Betts getting out, and then just start noticing like their body language, and like you don't notice.
Yeah,
It's the coolest thing ever. Like, and so I know they're the best of the best and the best in the game, but you can't tell me that doesn't matter. So I think the red flag, bad body language, man. I think that's really, 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 it's a red flag.
yeah. One of the guys I did a deep dive in on the other day was Derek Jeter, and like I just tasked myself with trying to find a moment in which like he expressed bad body language, and it's if you ever get some time, like try to go find body language that's negative with a guy like Derek Jeter. It's very difficult. I don't know if it's out there really, really.
And I would say this too to kids is like even you never know who's watching you, number one. So people notice that. That's the first thing. Like even if you don't think somebody's there watching, the second thing is everything is video now. It's like, so if you can see bad body language on video, that's not good. And you always
Mm,
have to think that, you know, I want to I don't want to show up. I don't want somebody to show up in the game and tell them I'm having a bad game. They can tell
yeah,
that I'm having a bad game. It
yeah.
shouldn't matter.
Definitely. Definitely. Let me ask a couple more questions and then
Yeah.
we'll let you go right here. But moving on into a different category here, and it's about the communication via email. Obviously, you've gotten hundreds of thousands of emails. What are some things that you need to be able to see when a guy reaches out to you, and what are some things that like, hey, don't be doing this because I promise you, if you put this in there or it looks like this, I ain't reading it. I'm moving on to the next one.
I would just keep it like concise, strong subject. I don't want three paragraphs. Give a good short paragraph, rope some video in there, and keep it moving. I
Yeah.
would say that would be my advice as far as an email. I also wouldn't be afraid to get active and utilize Twitter and send
Yeah.
coaches Twitter.
Go
Just
deeper on that. What does that look like?
yeah, I think it's just a DM to a coach or something like that. That because basically that's what I have Twitter for. It was for me to um, just kind of scroll through Twitter, understand what's going on in the baseball world, but maybe it's very recruiting driven. And I would, instead of sending an email, maybe just send the coach a Twitter message and say, hey, here's the deal. I'm going to this tournament, or hey, here's the deal. I'm very interested in your school. Blah blah blah. Here's some video. When's the next camp I can come to? Blah blah
Yeah.
blah. So I think that's another decent way to get a coach's attention through communication. but I would say less is more in terms of the content you're providing.
Yeah. I think I've been helping some guys. It's not a service that like I offer. I'm not out there marketing that I'm going to help kids get to school. But when they ask, I always, help them with their messaging and stuff. And one of the things that I see getting a ton of traction is just when you put into the email, hey, when's your next camp? Like, don't email or message somebody if you have zero intention of showing up to a camp or going, like, if they respond to you and they're like, hey, come to my camp, like if you don't have intentions of going to that, then you don't need to be emailing them or messaging them anyway. So I think just asking to go to the camp, it says, I'm interested. Obviously, the schools generate money through camps as well. So like that's a great way for them, but also it gets you right in front of the people that you need to be in front of. So it's like a win-win-win across the board. And I don't think enough people understand the value of when is your next camp in a sentence, because as a recruiting coordinator, you're probably jumping on those like this kid wants to come to a camp, he's interested, we'll get him on campus, yada yada yada. If you
Sure,
leave that out, I think that
absolutely.
you're missing a lot of responses. Yeah.
Well said.
Um, so that's about it, man. I think the last question I would just have is just, wrapping everything up. What is just the general advice from anybody listening to this that they can take away from, how to get themselves seen, whether it's at Vanderbilt, whether it's at Lenore Ryan, whether it's at St. John's, like how does somebody go about the recruiting process?
Yeah, I would say one, I think it nowadays more than ever, I have an understanding that the recruiting process could be intimidating, could be stressful, but I would say enjoy it. Enjoy the ups and the downs of it. Enjoy the communication to it. Enjoy the process of just getting better. But I would just say focus on just getting better, because if you're good, they're going to find you, and there's always a home for you, no matter where you go. So, and the second piece of just the recruiting process, because recruiting to me is developing great relationships with coaches, with parents, with players. So get to know those coaches, one, and I wouldn't be scared to have a conversation with anybody, because you never know where they're going to be. They might be talking
You,
to you
for
at a
example,
division 3 school, and all of a sudden they're at a Division 1 and it's your dream school. You know, so having a level of gratitude for those coaches' times and their work, and them trying to express interest in you is important, and you trying to express interest in them. Um, but I would say just as a high school player, focus on getting better every day, and you'll just, the game will reward you on its time. And as far as the recruiting process, my advice would be reach out. Don't be afraid to go to camps, and get with the right people around you to kind of, be honest and be real with you where they think you can play, what's a good, events or team to play for, whatever it might be. But don't be afraid to have don't be afraid of those honest conversations that you might get, because those might pay off in the long run.
definitely, definitely. Well, appreciate it, man. You've provided a ton of value. What I tell people is the conversation we just had is going to help somebody. They're going to turn around, and give that information to somebody else. And now we started like a trickle effect of just helping as many people as we can. I know that you're a lifer, you're a baseball guy, and I appreciate you taking the time to share some of the wisdom and knowledge that you have on this landscape. So again, man, appreciate you.
Appreciate you, Dela.